Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Buddha, product evangelist here at Tyk, and I am super excited today to host this first ever Tyk community call. We've got a fantastic session for you. I'm really looking forward to interacting with everyone who is here in the attendance, as well as for you to interact with us. As you can see, we've got a stacked panel at this point of time, and I couldn't be more excited to bring this really not so long, but action-packed session for you today. So what are we going to be covering? We're going to be doing introductions really quickly, but before that, just to go over the agenda before we do so, what you have to look forward to today is we're going to be starting off with a welcome to the Tyk community. Here we're going to be looking at the what and the who of the Tyk community. We'll then go into a more hands-on demo of the Tyk 5.0 release, which is our latest release. We'll look at the open API specification, GraphQL, and UDG. There's some really exciting stuff that we're going to be demoing here. Then I'll give you a brief overview of the Tyk site project fund as well. It's an exciting project fund. It's been running for a little while. The deadline is coming close, so hopefully if you have not signed up for it, you will do so today. Then we'll talk about the Helm Charts updates that we've got, as well as what's new in the developer portal. And then finally, we are going to be opening things up for the community Hangout. This is where we'll be having the Q&A with you. It's an opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit better, as well as hopefully for you to be as excited to know us as well. So this is the time for your questions and for you to, get involved a little bit more. So with that, I want to invite everyone who is in the panel right now to maybe just go around the room and introduce ourselves a little bit. And as I said, I am Buddha, product evangelist and developer advocate over here. I'm going to be hosting this session today. With me, as you can see, there's a fair amount of people here, all really excited to be part of this as much. So I'm going to kick things off. Maybe Andy, you're right here on my left. So go ahead, quick introduction.
Hi, thanks for joining. I'm Andy Ost. I'm product manager here at Tyk, looking after our core gateway and dashboard products. It's great to be here.
Great to be with you today. So Andy, next up, we've got Laurencio. Hello and welcome.
Hey, I'm Laurencio. I'm a technical lead here at Tyk. Same as Andy in the core API management team. And yeah, I help Andy bring ideas to life, I guess.
That's a great way of putting it. All right, over to you, Agatha.
Hi, I'm Agatha. I'm one of the senior product managers here at Tyk. The easiest explanation of what I take care of is all things GraphQL. So anything connected to GraphQL will probably come to me and my squad. And obviously, I'm the person who thinks of the crazy ideas and new features, and the squad tries to implement them later on. So I'll be showing a few of those later.
Again, fantastic introduction there. All right, over to you, Carol.
Hello, I'm Carol. So I'm the product manager here in Tyk for the platform and operations team. So now here today, I'm going to talk about our Helm Charts. Thank you.
Brilliant. Over to you, Andre. I know you've got a slightly sore voice, but maybe a little high for the community.
Hi there, I'm Andre. I'm a software developer for Tyk's operator team. We mostly take care of the Tyk operator and the Tyk Helm Charts, and I would be more than happy to answer any of the technical questions you have about that when we get to it.
All right, over to you, Sergey.
Hi everyone, my name is Sergey, and I'm a senior product manager here at Tyk, looking after the developer portal. Today I'm going to talk about our new enterprise developer portal versions 1.2, 1.3. So yeah, glad to be here.
Fantastic. And we've got two other people in the panel, and I'm just going to hold back their introductions because there's a dedicated segment where I'm going to be introducing the other two members here with us in the panel, which is Olu and Sandeep. So I'm just going to hold that off for a little while. So bear with me before we do that. So let's head on over to just our topic of discussion today. So we are going to be looking at, obviously, what the Tyk community is to begin with. So hello and welcome again to the Tyk community, and thank you for being a part of it. If you've already been following along our journey so far all the way, now I think we're getting to about 7-ish years now, almost since the beginning of the Tyk community. So it's been quite the journey that we've been on since the inception, the building of the first open source gateway that we had. So often we do get asked this question about, how do we view the community? Is it just for open source folks? Is it just the community forum? Is it GitHub? Is it a combination? What is the community for us? So I thought maybe we kick things off today with that definition, that very definition to start off. So let's start off with what is the Tyk community for? And I think that might give you a better sense of why this is important for us. And hopefully it'll give you a way to relate to what we are trying to do here as well. So what is the Tyk community for? So it is a place for you to be inspired. I think this is a very important area where we really look at taking ideas or bring those ideas to life from our own end, but also for you to interact with other people, with their ideas, with what other people are building in the overall API ecosystem. Of course, we want to focus a little bit more on Tyk itself, but it doesn't have to stop there. So the community for us is a place for you to be inspired just as much as it's a place for us to be inspired as well. It's a place for you to discuss ideas. If you've got an idea that you want to bring to life, this is a place for you to discuss that, to get feedback, to get support. This is a place for you to do that. And that brings us to getting support. Now, when I talk about getting support, it's not just about discussing ideas, but also getting support to actually solve your problems. If you're stuck with something, if you're trying out Tyk today, whether that is the open source product, whether that is the paid product, either one of those, enterprise or not, if you need support, if you need help, if you're stuck somewhere, we are here to help you out. If you have already been part of the Tyk community forum, you will see that some of our amazing community heroes internally have been responding to questions and hopefully enabling you to get further ahead in your journey than you were before and hopefully get your project to fruition. Also, it is a great place for you to stay updated with all things Tyk, any new updates that are coming in, any new announcements that come in. The community forum is a great place for you to follow that, as well as GitHub repositories get updated as soon as any new update comes in. That's usually a great place for you to check out any new things that are coming here as well. So the community is a great place for you to stay updated with all things Tyk. And then finally, it is a great place for you to get involved as well. And obviously, we would like you to get involved in the world of Tyk. Give us your feedback. Make those pull requests, make those feature requests. If you've tried it out, then let us know. If you can contribute, then by all means get involved. And it's just not just about getting involved with Tyk itself, but it's also getting involved in the open source community at large. Our gateway has always been open source, and we've got other components that have been built around that open source capability, but equally we've got other projects there which you can get involved at any point of time if you wanted to, whether that is again in the form of a feedback or that is in the form of actually building out a component. And we've had that before happening, and it really, really excites us to see those new ideas coming to life as well. So with that, what is or who is the community for? And I think for the longest time, the notion has been that this is primarily for Tyk users and specifically the open source users. So today we define who the Tyk community actually is for, so that again, it makes it easy for you to relate to and hopefully get involved as well. So obviously, it is a place for Tyk users. But the Tyk users, the definition of it is not limited to just the open source users. And of course, open source is a critical component. It's a key part of our DNA. So that is never going to go away. That is always going to be one of our key priorities. But equally, if you're using the enterprise version of our products, whether that is the developer portal, whether that is the dashboard, you've got ideas, you've got questions, you've got challenges, feel free to use the community forum. This is a place for you to get support, to get ideas and help bringing those ideas and projects to life. Equally, it is also for people who are Tyk curious. What I mean by that are people who are maybe not yet at the point where they are running a project or using Tyk yet, but they are curious about Tyk as a company, as a product, as what is going on in the world of Tyk. So the community is for you as well to stay up to date with what's happening. What are some of the curious questions and discussions that are happening around Tyk at this point? And hopefully at some point you get involved and get your hands on the product as well once an inspiration sparks you. And then finally, it is also a great place for API and API management enthusiasts. And these, once again, we are not looking at specifically talking to people who are trying out Tyk or interested in Tyk. Obviously, there are key demographic of people we want to serve here, but equally, if you're enthusiastic about things in the wider API ecosystem, this is, again, a great place for you to get involved and to have discussions, to share your ideas, to share your opinions, and we'll do the same. We've got specific ideas and opinions about things that are happening outside of what we support at this point of time, and there are reasons behind that, but equally, that doesn't make it any less relevant for perhaps your use case. So this is a great place for you to get involved and stay enthusiastic and curious about the API ecosystem at large. And then just to go over a couple of platforms that we have in place right now, which is to say, how do you get involved with the Tyk community at this point of time? So one of the key areas obviously is our GitHub page, as well as the multitude of GitHub repositories that we have right now. Obviously, the open source gateway is right over here under Tyk. This is a bit of a snapshot of it. Not everything can be filled because we've got a few things going on. But equally, how you can get involved with GitHub, or what you might want to use GitHub for, again, is to stay update and to contribute to the projects that we have going right now. It's a great way to find out about the Tyk repositories that we have, and whether that's analytics, whether that's the gateway itself, or the operator or the Helm charts, anything that's going on, right now, you can have a quick sneak peek into it. You can try it out yourself, as well as contribute through pull request and feature ideas as you go along. The other segment of this is the community forum. So the community forum, again, is a place for you to be inspired and to find support. It's a great place for you to discuss ideas, to learn and be inspired, to get support for any of these issues. So the getting support part has typically been the way that's been driving the community forward at this point of time. But equally, it's not just limited to that. It's a critical part of what we are doing, but it's not limited to that. It's a place for us to drive inspiration, to bring, again, those ideas to life as we want to bring out those conversations that are happening in the space of APIs, hopefully, again, to inspire you, to get you up and running in your journey. So with that, if you haven't tried out or signed up for the community forum, feel free to do so. It's at community.tyk.io. We will share the link in the chat shortly after I'm done with this. And if you want to check out the GitHub repository as well, I'm going to share that link too. And this is pretty much the landing page of our company profile, but equally, there are multiple projects that you can get involved in as well. So with that, I think that is sort of the introduction. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of what the community is all about, as well as who the community is for, the platforms that are involved in it as well. Now, what I wanted to do here is obviously to introduce you to the team behind the Tyk community. And it is not just one person. Typically, it's not just me. It's not just Olu or anybody in this team. It is essentially a team effort here. We take the community really, really seriously. And this is where I wanted to introduce two people who are really, really critical to this, who have been great supporters of what we are doing with the community forum. But again, everyone that you have met before, everyone who introduced, gave their introduction at the beginning, are a critical part of the Tyk community internally. So whether that is product, whether that is engineering, whether that is marketing, whether that is developer relationship, whether that is support engineering, commercial, it spans every single team that exists here in Tyk. And therefore, it is something that we take really, really seriously. And we are really excited equally, not just seriously, but we are also excited to be part of this, to see your questions coming in, to see your pull requests coming in, to be involved with any conversations that will benefit you. So I'm going to stop sharing now so that we bring the focus back to the people here that make the Tyk community. Obviously, we've had an introduction with the folks at the beginning. I want to introduce two other people, which I had held back previously. So Olu, if you would just introduce yourself. Hello and welcome to the community call, man.
So hi guys, hi everyone. My name is Olu. As Buddha said, you'll have seen me quite a number of times in the community forums. I've answered quite a number of questions I can't count. And it's great to be here today.
Fantastic. So do you have a handle on the community forum as well, or do you just use your name right now?
No, so my handle is Olu. It's short,
yeah.
So OLU,
yeah. That's an important one, because I think what I was also trying to do is to put faces to the nicknames as well in some cases, to see, because there are some really cool nicknames out there, but just in case you're also looking at the person behind those nicknames. That's great. We have another person here who is also, if you look at first responses that come up typically especially on the community forum, Olu is probably right up there, and together with him is Yuwang here. So hello and welcome, man. Quick introduction for you.
Hi, my name is Ubong. As you said, I'm Olu's sidekick, put it that way, on the community forums. So I learn from him and I support everyone else.
Well, some heroes don't wear capes. So yeah, if you do have a question that comes up on the community forum, you would usually see Olu or Ubong responding right at the beginning, but then you'll have usually follow-ups from other people if they need to be involved as well. So last but not least, we have Sandeep over here as well. So hello and welcome, Sandeep. He's typically the one who's really, really enthusiastic about open source. Also the person who would be responding to your questions on Twitter feeds as well, if you have not done that. So hello and welcome, Sandeep.
Hey, hi everyone. Thanks, Buddha. Thanks for having me.
You want to do a quick
Exactly.
introduction of what you're doing here at Tyk as well?
Yeah, sure. I'm with Tyk. It's been a year. I'm based out of APAC, so I kind of take care of the and solution architect in the APAC team. But yeah, as Buddha said, I try and engage in open source community. So any questions that come up, any comments that come up in Twitter or LinkedIn or and Mastodon maybe, right? So yeah, I try and engage there.
Ricky, we'll probably have a discussion about Mastodon and its usability at some point as well. So, but beyond that, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. So if you're looking at the people behind the community forum, obviously, we are very excited about being contributors to everything that's happening and to support you in your journey. Equally, ultimately, the key element of the Tyk community is you, the people who are listening in the audience at this point of time, as well as people hopefully will be listening later on for the recorded session as well. So if you've got an opportunity to get involved, do say hi, give us your feedback. We are always looking to be better at supporting you. It's not just about building better products, but better products are built by user feedback. And I think you are a critical component of doing that, because ultimately you want to solve problems and putting that in that context. So with that, I think that's all the introduction that we have at this point of time. Just a bit of a housekeeping in case you joined us a little bit later. There is a Q&A section that you might see at the bottom of your screen. There is a chat section as well, if you see that at the bottom. At any point of time, if you want to raise your hand or ask any questions, feel free to do so. We'll take those questions in stride as we go along the discussion, but there is going to be a dedicated community hangout and Q&A segment right after we are done with all of the demos as well. So, but that doesn't stop you from asking any questions. So anytime you want to ask something that sparks an inspiration, an idea, or curiosity, feel free to put that in our chat. I'll be monitoring that and I'll pose that to our amazing panel over here. So with that, we are going to be heading on to our next segment. Our next segment is going to be about what is new in Tyk. And I'm not going to go back. Well, actually, I am going to go back to the slides because I just wanted to talk a little bit to what we have introduced. There are a few different segments here when we talk about what's new at Tyk right now. And we are talking specifically about the Tyk 5.0 to begin with, and being a community of users over here. And I think we've heard you, we're being excited about all things open API standards, and we have brought that to life. It has been around for a little while now. I think we introduced that way back in 4.1, but we've had a bit of a journey, and now it's at a point where we are truly excited for you to test and try it out. So with that, we've got our first segment of the Tyk 5.0, which is the Open API Specification segment. And I'm going to hand this over to you, Andy and Laurencio, to take things forward.
Fantastic. Thanks, Buddha. If we can move forward, lovely. Cool. So in 5.0, what we've done is we've enhanced our support for Open API. For the uninitiated, just got a couple of lines on here about what this is. Open API initiative are a group, an industry body looking to standardize in the way that RESTful APIs are defined. And by adopting this approach in your own API design, you're not restricted to the API design as offered by your gateways provider, but actually you can use a range of different tools, standard tools, to create and manage your definitions, and then bring them into the gateway. So we've been supporting this, as Buddha said, since Tyk 4.1. But what's new? Well, we've now, we're really expanding our support for Open API to take advantage of what Tyk has to offer. So full custom middleware support for all of the different elements of Tyk middleware chain. You're now able to configure virtual endpoints. We're now validating request parameters. We're supporting per endpoint Go plugins. And then in terms of our API designer, which we relaunched for OAS support, we've got full support in there now for mock responses. So you can actually test your APIs without having access to the upstream services. We've introduced patching of your APIs. So if your Open API definition that you've got elsewhere, if that changes, you can just bring that in and update your APIs within Tyk. We've also added an innovative versioning method because OAS doesn't actually natively support versioning, but we've now introduced that within Tyk for your OAS APIs. I have got a caveat on this slide that we are still in what we're calling early access for OAS. We are moving towards the full launch. But just be aware that we really want you to be using this and trying this out and helping us to develop this. But there may be some features on the Tyk Classic that we haven't quite got yet in the OAS. I'll hand over to Laurentiu, who's got a fantastic demo for you, which I'm sure you'll enjoy.
I will stop sharing so that you can take over there, Laurentiu. I think the exciting bit about 5.0, about OAS support that we've got right now, I think a lot of times we've seen with OAS support that some of the other folks have been doing in the industry is you basically ingest the OAS doc, but then you transform that into something a little bit more proprietary. And we've stayed away from doing that. We've sort of added on to that. But if you ever wanted to export that in the same format and, you know, have that integrated with external systems and solutions that speak the same language, which is the open API standard in this case, you can do that very, very easily. We're not looking to build anything custom or, you know, transforming that into a completely different format. It is still the same OAS doc that you know and love, which you will see in the demo shortly. And hopefully that excites you. And I think it enables you to work with tools that you're already familiar with. If you work with OAS, you don't have to learn necessarily something completely from scratch either. So gets you up and running really quickly. And that is essentially the theme of 5.0. As you go through these, I wanted to hold this back for the end of the discussion, but really a common theme that you will see that we have tried to focus on with our latest releases is that how do we get you to faster time to value? How do we get you up and running really, really quickly, whether that is in the form of examples, whether that is in the form of working with tools that you know and love as well, and you know, get you to finish off those jobs to be done if you wanted to. And we want to make that as easy as possible with better design, with better UX, with better capabilities, and you'll see all of that as we go along. So over to you. That's a little bit of a primer there, but over to you, Laurentiu, for the demo.
Thanks for the amazing introduction. That was more like product managers and marketing people speaking. From me as a developer, what does adopting open API really means? So us as developers, we're working really hard on either generate open API definitions from our source code, or struggling together in a team to have a design first approach over our APIs. So we put lots of effort into building these open API definitions, like this one on my screen. This is the well-known pet store open API definition.
Laurentiu, if you could just zoom in a little bit, it's a little bit smaller. So if you could just zoom in just a little bit, if you can.
Okay, maybe that's better.
Yeah.
What I mean by this is that since we were working heavily on this, why do I need to spend lots of time in configuring other tools I might help? For me as a developer, I love using third-party tools, but I don't want to spend most of my time into those tools continuously configuring. So that's with our developers' flows in mind. We've tried to come up with a solution of making the API gateways easily configurable. So what do I mean by that? So we all agree we can end up, regardless of the way we approach, like generating from code or doing a design first approach, we get this open API document. And now I'm going to use the dashboard UI, but this is all available from an API level as well, both dashboard and gateway. So you can easily achieve exactly the same functionalities in our APIs, which are very friendly. So I'm going to import this open API definition.
Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting again, Laurentiu. I think just zoom in just a little bit. I think I'm just looking at the stream and I think it's quite small.
Maybe now it's better.
A little bit more, just a little bit more, maybe. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's go ahead.
So what we get here is that our UI detected this is an open API v3 format, and it gives us some options to configure while importing. And let's go through all of this. First one is the custom listen path. By default, Tyk uses just / as a listen path, but you can define whatever you want in here. If you want to have /API/ as a starting point, you can do that. You can add also a custom upstream URL. By default, when importing an open API definition, Tyk already starts analyzing your open API definition and looks at the server's URL. If it sees an URL already existing that points to your upstream service, and then it will use by default that URL as an upstream point. So we're not going to check any of these at this point. We could provide something else like HTTP bin or anything else really, but doesn't make sense. We're going to use the pet store upstream. And next, this is where the interesting part comes in. So generate validated request middleware. What does that mean? With every path that you're defining in your open API definitions, there are a few things that you can define, like parameters, where you document the parameters an endpoint can accept. Either it's query parameters or path parameters, or request bodies that describe the way your payload will look like, right? So I can be very smart about that. And it can, if I click this, what it will do, it will read the request body and the parameters, and it will validate all the requests against these rules defined in their open API definition. Next, there's a section called generate mock responses. Okay, what's that about? Same as request bodies and parameters, there can be responses for different status codes, and for different content types, you can define schemas on how your response will look like, or a set of examples on how your responses will look like. And we'll see that in just a minute. Based on this kind of information, I can generate some mock responses and won't let the request to hit your upstream, but instead reply directly with the documented responses in here. Cool. Next one, apply detected authentication. So if we have a closer look at this, we can see that on the root level of our API definition, there is a security API key. If we expand even more, and we go into components and security schemes, we can see there is the API key here, type API key, which is very similar with our type functionality, which is authentication token. So your API is protected with authentication token. So we can understand and automatically apply that. And last option is basically to allow access just to the path endpoints defined in this document, and reject requests to any other path that is not documented in here. Okay, so let's import it. Okay. Second, my session expired. Plastic. Cool. So so the import succeeded. We created the API. We're not going to look at the UI just yet. Let's have a look on what has been created. So what Tyk does at this point is it stores the initial open API definition because that's the source of truth, and we want to listen for those settings. But what we do also is we augment the initial OpenAPI definition with our own configuration. We've enabled validate request middleware, we've enabled mock responses, we've enabled authentication. So all of these needs to be stored in the OAS API definition. So this is how this section looks like. It has 4 main sections. One is the information about the Tyk API, which is general metadata, the status of the API, if it's exposed on the gateway or not. Upstream information, in this case, you can see that now the URL from the OpenAPI definition server section has been copied over to our proprietary extension. And in the same time, what happened is we put the gateway URL into the server section of the OpenAPI definition, because this is the URL you might want your API consumers to use from now on. This is generic settings of the gateway, like the listen path, authentication mechanism, global middlewares, you can say. And here is the middlewares that we applied per endpoint, like validate requests and mock responses. I won't enter in details into this session over the settings that have been created here, but we're getting we're getting an advantage of the operation ID property from each path method. And based on that, we are configuring the list of middlewares. So now let's look at the UI, which is very friendly. And we can see that we have the authentication token mechanism automatically set up with the API key header name in here, and that probably this API is now protected by an authentication token mechanism. It expects a token. We'll see that in a minute. And if we go to the list of endpoints, we can see all the paths that have been documented in the Open API definition with the middleware attached to them. Where was the case? Like in this instance, probably this endpoint didn't have any parameters or request body present in the API definition, so we couldn't generate any validate request middleware for this. So let's have a look on, for instance, pet ID endpoint. So if we have a look here, we see that validate request middleware has been added. And what does that mean? And why was it added? Well, because in the path, there is a path parameter, pet ID, which is expected to be an integer. So let's try to hit that to see how it works. Okay, so let's try to use something different from an integer. Let's try to use a string. Okay, first of all, it says authorization field missing, right? So let's create a key for this. Create a key. Okay, let's send the request. Let's enable it. Okay, so as you can see, there's validation performed over the path parameter saying the pet ID should be an integer. And now if I'm going to use 10 in here, for instance, I'm going to get this response. But why is that? And let's dig deeper and see why this response has been returned. So if we go to pet ID and open the mock response settings, we can see in here that we have an examples documented. If I copy paste this string, just to look for it in the API definition, so you can see there is a response for 200 defined in here for the application JSON content type, and it's this one. So this is by default response, default response that this endpoint will use. So what you can do in this, we can add more examples. For instance, let's use a done one version 3D method. Update middleware, save changes. What happens now, it's because it has two different okay, hopefully the other one will be displayed. I need to get a 3D match. Okay, maybe I'm doing so. It's the same match. It was the same response and I didn't see the changes. Because it has two different examples attached, it will randomly return one or the other, right? What you can do in this case, so Tyk really spend lots of time into helping users out with these mock responses, because this is a very powerful way of basically decoupling dependencies between the teams. Imagine there's a front-end team that it's working and it doesn't need to wait for the backend to finish its service, implementing its services. And you can start using your Open API definition to generate mock responses based on that. If you want to make a specific example default one, you can easily select here this one, and from now on it will respond just with that. Okay. Also, besides the 200 response code, you can choose to add a mock response for any status code you want. For instance, we're going to have an error message. since 400 is selected up here, the gateway will use that as the default response. We got 404. And that's that from the Tyk configuration. But what if I'm an API consumer and I want, in some cases, to have the 200 return, in some other cases, I want the 404 to be returned. So for that, you can request the API with specific headers and you can choose what status code to be returned. So for instance, now I want it for 200, now I want 404. And within 200, for instance, it returns I'm a cat, but I want example 2 to be returned. So I can configure lots of, in many ways, what is being returned by the gateway, my APIs, and I can continue doing my implementation without waiting for the other team services to be implemented. Okay, as Andy said, with release 5.0, we added more middleware support in here, as we're not yet at the full parity with the classic API definition. And one of that is virtual endpoint, which is basically a JavaScript function which you can inject to be executed at the end of the middleware chain to maybe return a custom response body, maybe making requests to different third-party services and return some unified data in here. So let's add a dummy one. I'm not gonna demo how it works now, but it will help me in my future steps. And here function. So what I want to prove in here is that beside the middlewares that have been applied based on open API definition settings, we can add our Tyk specific configurations. And if we look at the raw definition, we can see that virtual endpoint middleware has been configured on this specific operation ID and doesn't have anything to do with the initial open API definition, right? It sits in our proprietary format and all that. The same, you can choose to enable other middleware, like, for instance, course or similar, doesn't matter. Okay, so, but remember, at the beginning of the presentation, I said, I'm a developer, an API developer. I don't want Tyk to stay in my way. So what do I mean by that? Is that this kind of configuration that are Tyk specific, you're not going to do them that often on a daily basis. But what it's possible that you might change very often is the open API definition. Okay, so you had your initial open API definition, which is great. But what if you decide to either maybe add a new method here? So for instance, you want to support good now. For being valid, you need a different operation ID. And you want to remove maybe an existing method. So now you have a brand new open API definition, which will need to be updated in here. For that, there is a new functionality we came up with, which is also supported at the API level. So you can easily use it in your CI/CD pipeline. So let's copy in here the new open API definition. As you can see, I'm updating the OAS API definition with a new OAS file. Okay, and now I can choose to apply the same rules over the new changes or not. So in this case, I'm not going to apply any new middleware on it. And what we can see is that the delete method that was previously documented in here doesn't exist anymore, and the new put method has been added without any middleware in it. Moreover, the virtual endpoint middleware that was configured on the path, on the previous path, it hasn't been removed. So we just replace what belongs from what we can understand from the open API definition, but not more. If we do the same step over and over again, but this time maybe checking these options, then the middlewares will be attached to the new endpoints. So that's what I wanted to prove, is that, okay, and the core section remained the same. So everything changes based on your new document, but the type proprietary settings will stay in there. After that, you can either choose, you can, for instance, choose to export your OAS document from here. Let's go and take it. And let's put it here. So this is the document you can export from Tyk, and you can then choose maybe to integrate it in a third-party application of your choice in your, maybe you want to continue in the CI/CD pipeline to use it, or for instance, to import it into Swagger editor, and allow your customers to play with your API, right? So if I put it in here, okay, you can see I have all the endpoints in here, and if I'm trying out this endpoint, what it will do, it will say authorization field missing. So you see it has hit the, I think I can put the API key here. And I can get the response that the gateway mocks, and I'm not exposing to my API consumer the private settings for configuring the API gateway. And yeah, that was about it on my list for today. Hope you've enjoyed it, and waiting for your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I think going through that entire journey of how you would walk through the mocking segments, as well as taking an existing API definition that you've created using the Open API specification, then adding on to that. That's fantastic. And obviously, if you've got questions about this at any point, do feel free to add that to the Q&A section. We'll pick that up as we go along. I'm going to rush through a little bit, given that we are running behind the schedule just that little bit. So thank you so much, Laurentius. Thank you so much, Andy. I'm going to head over straight to Agatha now for your part of the demo, all things GraphQL and UDG.
Yes. So I'm not a fan of the slides, so I will just jump straight in to show you what we've added in the latest release. So I wanted to actually start with, in case someone is not familiar, we offer, as part of our product, we offer something called Tyk Universal Data Graph. And it's a really cool tool. I've seen a short clip the other day where it says it's magic. It kind of is. But basically what it allows you to do is, if you have a bunch of APIs that live in different parts of your organizations, but you think that the data actually makes sense when it's stitched together. So one API might give context to data coming from somewhere else. Then Tyk Universal Data Graph allows you to normalize everything into the same format and start stitching it together and start creating connections between different sources of your data. And since this is our proprietary tool, and it's especially if you're not using the dashboard, it can be a little bit clunky to configure. You need to remember about a lot of things. We decided to make it easier for everyone, and we prepared some examples that you can now very easily import, not only to your dashboard, but also using Tyk Gateway API to your gateway if you're running just an open source gateway. So I will be switching a little bit between the command line and our GitHub, but hopefully it will make it into a story. So first of all, if you currently go into our dashboard, and you will go into the new section called Data Graphs, this is where you would work on creating those graphs of different data sources. So you can do, if you're familiar, you can start designing a new graph, you can import something that's ready, or there's a new option right now that we went for, is you can try one of our examples. Now, right now it says coming soon, and that is true. But you can directly from here, you can just go to GitHub. There we have a nice little repository that allows you to take a ready-to-go data graph definition and just have it working within seconds. There are two main ways to do that. Currently, you can use Tyk Sync. So Tyk Sync is a nice little tool that we as Tyk have. If you need to synchronize data between gateways, if you want to use CI/CD pipelines, Tyk Sync is probably something you would benefit from. But we've expanded Tyk Sync in order to easily import examples. If you're not familiar with Tyk Sync, and maybe you don't have time to learn, you can still use the examples. So all you have to do is go to our Tyk examples. There's a UDG, Universal Data Graph, and there's a couple of examples in here. So you can import an example fully in a manual way. Every example has some information. What's the general use case? What are the data sources that we've used in this example? And it has a couple of queries to get you started once you import it. So let me first show you. So if you go here, this is a Tyk API definition. It's not OAS, but it is a Tyk API definition. It will work. You just need to copy it and go into import data graph. Just Control V and import, and there you go. Let's update this. Let's go back, and we have a completely new data graph. It's all set up, so you don't have to worry about how to write this schema, how to attach a data. So everything is already done. And if I go back here just to check very quickly, so there's a query to get you started. Let's try this out. Let me maybe switch to light. I prefer the light than the darkness. So you can just go quickly. And also this is a data graph that allows you to check validity of a VAT code. So this is why my name is popping up, because it is my personal VAT code. But you can check any other VAT codes over here if you have some. So that's the first way. The second way is, if you like command line tools, you can, as I said, use Tyk Sync. And we've expanded Tyk Sync with a few new commands. So let me show you. First of all, the first command, examples. Okay, if you run Tyk Sync examples, you will get a list of all the available examples. So if you remember, when I was showing GitHub, we used the VAT checker, example. I will now show you how to use Tyk Sync, and we'll import the geographical information. So the next one is Tyk Sync, examples show. So I want to see a particular example. What I need to do is I need to copy the location and just tell Tyk Sync which exact location I want to look at. So let's take a look. Okay, that's cool. Gives me a little bit of more geo information about the world. It gives me a little bit of an indication what kind of features I can take a look if I can take a look at if I import this. And it also gives me something that's quite important: the minimum Tyk version that you need to be running in order for this example to work correctly. Obviously, we are expanding our features every single release. So if you're running something that's below the minimum Tyk version, there is a risk that it might not everything might work as you'd expect. So let's go further. Again, Tyk Sync. Again, examples. So we are still in the examples universe. Now I want to actually get this example into my dashboard. So I want to publish. And there's a few things that I need to give you, because I'm publishing to my dashboard. I need to tell Tyk Sync where my dashboard lives. So my dashboard is obviously set up locally currently, so it lives under this URL. I also need to give my credentials to Tyk Sync so that Tyk Sync can act on my behalf in that dashboard. So that's my dashboard secret. And I will be showing this. By the way, I will be changing this after this call, so no point in copying. And I also need, again, to tell Tyk Sync which exact example I want to import. And since I'm importing the UDG/geo info, that's going to be my location. So fingers crossed. Okay, so I fetched one definition. There was no policies fetched. Obviously, this will be an open keyless API, very easy, like to get you going really, really fast. Yeah, everything went well. So now if I go back to my data graphs and I refresh the page, I should have a new one here. So again, ready to go, easy to use. Let's go and see a little bit of it. So again, let me switch to light. So obviously, you know, as with any other GraphQL playground, you can look at what's possible, what kind of types there are, what kind of fields you can ask for. And let's just write a very simple query. So let's write a country query, and I will be, so by the way, I'm based in Poland, so I will be getting a little bit of information about Poland. Let's get a name. Let's get a capital. And if you look at, actually, let me copy this. If you look at the schema over here, there are actually few different data sources. So there's a GraphQL data source, but the country type, so information about the country that's coming from my original GraphQL data source, doesn't really have any information about the latitude and longitude. And I wanted to have it, right? I wanted to stitch together two different data sources. So my capital coordinates will be coming from a REST data source like this. And also caveat at this point, this is a public data source because obviously we want everyone to be able to use it out of the box. It's a public data source and it has a very low quota and a very low limit. So it might happen that I will not get this information because I will hit the limits. But let's just go.
Might be worth just zooming in just that little bit. I think it's a little light.
Yeah, okay.
And the theme to be light as well, I think. That was useful.
The light theme helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think, okay, now it should be better. So just as a caveat, I might run into like the original data source limitations, but you know, fingers crossed, maybe.
Drum roll.
Oh, damn.
Oh, yeah, throat on.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah, this is, and I think, well, not I think, I know it's because I was trying this out before this call. So, you know, if I were running a VPN, then maybe I would have not gotten it. But anyway, yeah, so you can see now, you know, it comes from two different data sources. This is coming from the REST. And if I go to the request logs over here, you can see that there were actually two requests sent. So first request was sent to my GraphQL data source, which is Countries Trailblaze, one of the most famous examples of public GraphQL. And then once the response came back and my data graph had the name of the capital, it used the name of the capital to send a request to the other data source, right? So this was the other data source, geocode XYZ. And then geocode XYZ unfortunately kicked me. So,
I mean, it's still a response though. I think it's still a response. So
it's
just not the one that we wanted, but it is a response.
Yeah, it might not be as useful as you want. Yeah. So that's what we so this Tyk examples, this repository, and there's actually if you would go to this README, there's actually a caveat here. You might hit those limits, so just be aware of that. But yeah, so that's one thing that we've added, that we think it can get you to a working data graph very quickly, within seconds, literally. And once you have this definition, so you can always switch to view the row definition. It gets, all of a sudden, it gets so much easier to understand and work off of this to maybe add something on your own, or maybe to adjust it to your particular use case. The repository of examples will be growing. It's just a start. But yeah, but I also wanted to show one more cool thing, because it might happen, and I need the API ID for that. It might happen that some of your users are not ready for GraphQL, right? Universal data graph, the data graph itself, you need to be familiar with GraphQL a little bit to use it. So if you have customers or clients or consumers that are not really that, and maybe they are on, I don't want to learn, I don't have time, you can still get use out of all of the stuff that I've just done, because there is a way in Tyk to get GraphQL back to REST, which is quite cool. So let me show you how to do that. I will be using this. So GeoInfo, this data graph that I've created. As you saw, it's a concatenation of two different data sources, right? It takes information from two different places. And I will try to persist an operation and expose it as a simple REST. So what I need to do then is, first, let's call it persist demo. It's a very beautiful title. Now, I will be using over here this kind of a URL. This means that it's a Tyk API, because obviously it is. And so it's going to be routed internally within the gateway. There's no external traffic with that. And I'm using the API ID to reference that API. So I'll go to configure. Again, I will make it keyless because it's just much easier. So the next part is you will have to do it in the row definition anyway. So there is so extended paths, this part of the definition of Tyk API definition is actually allowing you to configure all the different middleware that actually Laurentio was showing. It's the old way, kind of an old way, non-OAS way, but it allows you to configure that as well. And the way you would do that is, and just for the sake of time, this is all in the docs. I will just paste this and I will tell you quickly what I'm doing here. So I will be creating a new endpoint. The endpoint will be my Tyk, and then countries, and then a country code. Underneath this endpoint, this operation will be executed. So exactly the same operation that I was showing you in the GraphQL in the playground. And then the variable will actually be dynamic, because whatever my consumer will send as a country code, I don't know, DE for Germany, NG for Nigeria, whatever the country code, it will be dynamically read from the path, and it will be used as a variable of the query. So let me show you how it works. Oh, no. Oh, okay. I know what the error is. Yes. Okay, let's go back. So this is my API URL, and I will go to Postman now just to show that I'm not cheating. I will be using the get method. As you remember, that was my path. It was countries, and now, maybe not Poland. Let's query Romania. Let's query where Laurentio is located. So what I'm expecting right now is I will probably get the throttling error for the latitude and longitude, but I'm expecting to get name Romania, and I'm expecting to get the capital of Romania, which worked perfectly. And again, this. So you know, we were thinking about users. We were actually thinking about the consumer, about consumers of the APIs. Not everyone is ready to interact with GraphQL. Some systems are not. Some systems are very hung up on REST APIs, and this is a way both for the provider to have control over what people can query, and for the consumer to, you know, to be able to say, I'm not ready for GraphQL. I still need REST. So that works. And I know I don't have time, and I think Buddha, if we were in the same room, would be kicking me right about now. But I just wanted to say very quickly, one large thing that we also released with 5.0 is GraphQL is very hard to monitor, and when you know the way Tyk monitors API, the way the analytics records are created for REST APIs in Tyk, we're not entirely fitting for GraphQL. So we decided, you know what, let's give it more context, and we've created 3 new pumps for Graph specifically. There's a Mongo pump for Graph, and there are SQL pumps, aggregated pump, and a normal granular pump for Graph as well. And we are currently recording a lot of information that you can turn into something like this. This is all about GraphQL. There's no REST APIs. You can look at which queries are popular. You can look at which responses are popular. You can look at how many errors were on the APIs, and that counts errors not only in the HTTP layer, so if you get 401, whatever, but it also adds up the errors that come back in the body of the GraphQL response. So yeah, exciting.
That's awesome. I think observability is such an important area.
Yeah.
I think it's been a focus for us for a little while. I think it's going to go into overdrive very, very soon. So definitely look out for that in future community calls. But there's also one of those topics, if it excites you, it's a great point for you to get involved as well. If there are thoughts and opinions and things that you want to test out and play around with, this is the time for you to do that as well. So as a community, we want your feedback as well, just as much we want with the open API specification stuff. This is another area that we are really excited about.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Again, we are over time a little bit, but we'll move on. This is great stuff. I think if you want to try it out, I have left links to some of the repositories, the community forum, the GitHub pages in the chat. Feel free to try it out and hopefully tell us what you think about it as well. So with that, I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's move on to the next bit. I'm going to head on to our next demo, which is going to be all about Helm Charts. All hail the Helm Charts. I'm going to share the screen really quickly once again with, I think, Carol, you're going to be taking this one. So I will just...
maybe I can share the screen because I can just let's show the repo directly.
Yeah, absolutely. Take it away, Carol.
Okay. So thanks, everyone. So today I'm going to introduce you to our new Helm chart repositories. So I have prepared just a few slides picturing how our new Helm charts will look like, but I think I will just as well take you to the real GitHub repositories to take a look. So now we have redesigned our Helm charts in a much more flexible and composable way. So we will be providing component charts for all the Tyk components we own and that you can easily mix and match depending on your needs. But for convenience, we will be also providing some umbrella charts. So umbrella charts are default configurations for different use case. Now we already have the Tyk OSS umbrella chart for our open source users and also a MDCB data plane chart. for you to deploy a hybrid gateway that can connect to a Tyk Cloud or MDCB control plane. So today I'm thinking to show you how to use the Tyk OAS umbrella charts to install the open source gateway, and then configure Tyk POM to send some analytic data to Prometheus on my cluster. I will then deploy a really simple HTTP API and generate some traffic to it. And finally, because Tyk POM send all the analytics data to Prometheus, I can use a Grafana dashboard to nicely monitor the performance of my APIs. So before my demo, I'll quickly show you, besides the Tyk OAS chart, what else we're already working on. So apart from the open source chart, we are also working on to prepare the self-managed umbrella chart, which helps you to deploy all the Tyk components, including the dashboard, dev portals, on a single data center. And then a part of that, we are also preparing the MDCB control plane chart, which includes the MDCB component, which helps you to have a central place to configure your API configurations, and then MDCB will help you to distribute all your configurations to the remote gateway in your remote data plane, deployed by the data plane charts, of course. So let's jump into the demo. Let me just show you quickly what I have on my local cluster. So here I have just deployed Prometheus on my local cluster. I also have Tyk operator system running, which will help me to deploy some API after I've deployed the Tyk gateway. So to start off, so very simple, go to our Tyk charts repository. I'm on the Tyk OAS sections. So here you can find all the instructions and documentations on how to install and configure the Tyk charts. So let me bring up my terminal. So I am in my working directory. Here I just have a HTTP, I've prepared an HTTP API here to deploy later, but now to start, I have to get my Helm chart here. I'm doing a Git clone because we have not published our Helm chart to the Helm repository yet. You do not have to do that later when we have published it. So then the next step is I have to update dependency of my umbrella charts. So is here chart dependency updated. Okay, and then I will copy the default values.yaml file here so that I can configure my Helm chart. Okay, before I go on to configure the Helm chart, let me just one more step. So I also have to install Redis in my cluster because gateway needs that. So it's just a simple one-line command to do that. And then let's see. So what's useful here is the Redis password. I'll export it to a environment variable. And then that's all. So this is the values.yaml I have just get from the default Helm chart. I can go on to configure it now. Okay. So the first thing I want to change is to enable Tyk POM because I want to have my API analytics data sending to Prometheus. And then I would also like to change my API secret to something.
Carol, if you could just zoom in a little bit, if you could. It's a little small.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes, okay.
Okay, So the next thing I want to configure is the Redis connections. Because I'm using the Bitnami Helm Charts, I'll just uncomment this line. That's all for Redis configurations. So let's check the gateway sessions, what I have to configure. So now you see there is a easy option for me to turn on TLS. If I want to use HTTPS, just turn this to true, enable. And then if I don't want to use the default TLS certificate with the Helm chart, I can change it to false and then put in the secret name where I store my TLS certificate. But for now, let me skip these configurations for testing. So I see that it is getting the latest version of Tyk Gateway. That's good. We can use all the cool features Agatha and Lorenzo just showed us. And then that's all for Gateway. Actually, nothing else to configure. So here we have the Tyk pump configurations. I have already enabled Tyk pump in the global sections. So let's see what kind of pump are enabled. So I'm using the latest pump versions here. In the backend sessions, I can specify what kind of pumps I want to use. By default, it has enabled Prometheus pump for me. So that's good. That's what I want now. Because I have Prometheus running on my cluster, I need to configure the Prometheus pump here. So here I can specify a change where Prometheus can scrape metrics from Tyk pump. I'll leave it as default, and then the things I want to change is here. So I want some custom metrics. So the default example here show me some nice things already. For example, I can get a count on the API response code, API name, method, etc. And then I also get some latency information about my APIs, which is like the histogram, metrics on these response, API names, etc. All right, that's cool. So one convenience thing here is if I'm using Prometheus operator to install my Prometheus, I do not have to configure Prometheus separately. I can just enable this to be true. What it does is it will create a pod monitor resource for me. So Prometheus operators knows how to get my metrics from here. And so I think all is set. The only things you may want to double check is the pod monitor selector here. Is it matching what you have in your Prometheus installations? For me, it's fine. I know this is the correct configurations. So I've saved these files and I'm ready to start my installations. So I'm back to my terminal. Okay, so next what I have to do is run ham install. So let's name it Tyk using the Tyk OAS chart. I want to install it in the Tyk namespace using the values file we just updated. The last thing is I want to also set the global Redis password to what I just got earlier. All right, okay. So I see that gateway pump is already up and running. Good. What I want to do next is, because I want to access gateway directly here, so I do a loop forward to ATT, and then to command. So if I hit the hello endpoint, it gives me the health check information from the gateway. So I can see status path is running okay. Redis is also connected successfully. So it looks like we're ready to deploy some API here. Okay, so I've prepared my service, my applications as a Helm chart. So I'll go on to install this HTTP bin app, let's call it. Okay. So let me show you. So what it does is just create a service of my applications, but I have also included here an API definitions custom resource file here that so this one works with the Tyk operator on my gateway. So Tyk operator will help me to deploy this API onto the Tyk gateway I've just installed. So now it looks like the API should be ready for me to call. Let me try to get it. So ATAT, the listen path is HTTP bin. Okay, so my API is also up and running now. I'll do one more things here. So I'll want to run a little load test on my API here. So what it is doing is let me bring. So I have run it using this K6 performance like testing scripts. So what it does is calling different endpoints or paths here to HTTP bin, emulating different application response from my service. So for example, some of it hits the 200 endpoint path. Some of it is hitting the 502, simulating the error scenarios from my applications. I want to generate traffics. So it's running. So I want to generate traffics to different status code. So so some of it have 400, 404, 500, 502, 503, etc. And then what else? I'm also trying to call the different path of my API, cache, IP, headers, etc. So that, I hope, is what is now showing up on my Grafana dashboard. Yeah, so before checking on this, I also want to show you the Prometheus target. So before the installation, I have all the surface monitor, which comes as default. But what was added here after the Helm install is the port monitor we have created. So this is a Tyk port monitor that told Prometheus how to scrape metrics from Tyk. So it is up and running, and it is why we are getting some nice data here on our Grafana dashboard, showing like a graph, a pie chart of status code. So we see that 90% of their traffic have a 200 response. Some of them have 500 responses, all just because of how we designed our load test scripts here. Yes, so I hope you like this simple demonstrations of how easily you can use Tyk Helm chart to configure the Tyk open source stack using the new umbrella chart, and also the power of Tyk with the Prometheus metrics support we have added. So you have all the like popular open source toolings that you can use with the open source gateway, which is also free, including all the exciting new features we've just demonstrated earlier. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Carol. That is super exciting to see this. Once again, the idea is for us to get up and running, or for you to get up and running with Tyk, and not spending a huge amount of time with infrastructure and ops and all of that kind of stuff. So this would help you along that journey really, really well. So with that, I think moving forward, once again, short on time, just that little bit. Over to you, Sergey. I think maybe we've got about 10-ish minutes with this one. So thank you so much. Take it away, Sergey, for the developer portal.
All right, thanks.
Actually, just one moment before we go ahead. I have Hina here in our audience who has her hand raised over here. Is if you have a question, feel free to put that in the chat or the Q&A. Happy to pick that up after. In the meantime, go ahead, Sergey.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Buddha. So we've been quite quiet about Dev Portal in our public comms, and especially in the community calls and community forum. But that doesn't mean we've been idle. So today, I'm happy to introduce the new brand, the Developer Portal. It's actually enterprise development. So what it is, it's in a few words, it's a tool that's aimed to productize your APIs. Launch your Developer Portal, bring your APIs to the market, and help to grow and develop your developer community. So for instance, if, let's say you have APIs that you want to expose to your partners so that they can build some value-added services on top of your services that later can be used by your clients, then it's a tool for you. If you want to expose your APIs to your clients so that they can build some automation, then it's a tool for you. So, because that's really the first public demo of the developer portal, it has so much stuff to show you, but you prioritize some of them just for the sake of time. So, I will start from the admin side of the portal. Basically, what it allows you to do is to bring your APIs to the market. In that, you can pack several APIs into the API product, making them a viable marketing and business asset to a company. You can also completely customize look and feel your API product so that you can control how they appear on the live portal. For instance, you can change the logo, description, add a bit of content so that they will be more feasible from a marketing perspective. You can also add tutorials and open API specification to your API products to get your developers up to speed quicker. Also, you can control who can see your API products. For instance, you have API products that are available only for partners, or you won't make them available to just anyone or to a specific audience. It's totally possible. You can select you want to show it, and you can control and create your developer audience from this portal. You can also use the settings to configure how your portal and your products will work with OAS Zero Flow. So we fully support OAS Zero Flow, and it's compliant with the dynamic client registration protocol, which enables you to use almost any publicly available identity provider on the market, which is awesome. Yeah, I won't go into details each of those sections, but just to finish the overview of the admin side of the application. So basically what you can do here, again, bring your products to the market, customize look and feel of your products. Then the same you can do with the plans. So you have multiple usage plans available for multiple audiences. For instance, here we have a free plan that's available just to everyone, and also you may have a premium plan with slightly relaxed rate limit. Yeah, and you can fully control like the sign-up flow. So for instance, you can enable your developers to sign up to your plans automatically or by approval by an admin user. Also, you can control applications of your developers. You can approve or reject access requests. You can control users. You can control organizations. Or for instance, if you have a partner or a customer who is a big organization and the organization have multiple users, and you want them to share credentials securely within the portal so that even some person from the team will move away from the company, you still have access. So they will still have access to all the credentials. Again, it's totally possible. You can also invite users, you can invite codes, write blog posts, and completely customize look and feel of your live portal with our theme management capability. So that's it for the admin side of the portal, and let's see how it looks like in the wild. So this is the default theme of Tyk Enterprise Developer Portal. You can completely customize it, so that you can not only change colors or CSS, you can change just everything. You can change the layout of the page, you can attach custom CSS, you can attach a custom JavaScript file and extend functionality of the portal in any way, like almost any way. So this is the default page. From here, you can go and access your products. And again, you can completely customize how those products look like. For instance, we have two products. One is Acme Price, and the second one is Acme Analytics. The first one helps you to have real-time prices for Acme's products, and the second one has some market analysis. So let's look how it looks like. Okay, so that's the API product page. In here, you might just have a space for the description of your product and also a summary so that you will catch it. We also expose all the plans available for this product. You may have multiple plans, and you may select to each specific audience those plans you will be available for. And here we have free and the premium plan. You also may attach blog posts to your API products. So for instance, if you have a blog post about analytics and you want to kind of elaborate a little bit on this, bring new marketing concepts, or explain in general about your product, you can use this feature. So for instance, you can attach multiple blog posts to a single API product, and therefore drive adoption from the API product page to the blog section of the site, making your product much more secure. You also have API specifications. So in here, you can attach plain OAS 3 and 2. In this case, it's pet store. So yeah, it's a pet store. You can send requests, browse the schema, and so on. And also you have the get started section. So here you can attach get started guides, FAQ, or other documentation that explains how to use your product or explains different aspects of it from technical or from business standpoint. Now let's try to access this product. All right. So here and access it with the free plan. So I can select the existing application or create a new one. Let's create a new one. Let's name it let's assume we create some AI app. Okay. And now our AI app appeared in a dashboard. So what we have in the dashboard? That's kind of a counterplane for a consumer for the developers. In here, you can access they can access the applications. So for instance, here I have 3 apps and credentials for each of those applications. I can also invite my teammates to join in the portal so that, for instance, if I win a vacation or I leave the company or move to our team, you will still have access to those applications and credentials and won't be blocked from doing their business. And finally, yeah, and in here I can change their role. So for instance, I can make this team member a team member or an admin. And finally, I have a dashboard. So the dashboard holds information about all traffic, all stuff that happens to my APIs. So let's start from the overview page. So here you can see raw traffic, all applications that have top highest APIs by error rate and error breakdown. So for instance, if you have any issue, like spike in number of errors or this kind of stuff, you can quickly digest what happened here. Then we have analytics for API calls, for errors and error rate. You can see shifting metrics. Also, you can decide if you want to display them daily or hourly. And finally, we have latency analysis. And you can download this into CC file. So for instance, if you want to analyze this using some Panda or some analytics tool, that's totally possible. You can just click in here and it will enable you a CC file. Yep. Okay. Cool. Now we create the application, and now let's try to make a call. Should be analytics. Okay. Yeah, it's cool. Let's wait for a couple of seconds.
Moment of truth will happen.
Yeah.
Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. There you go.
Yay. Yeah. One more time. This spec points to HTBin, and it experiences a bit of performance each day. So we may have some for force before we get to the point where we have talk. Yeah, there you go. Now let's see how it's reflected in the live portal. Great, we have one more call. Awesome. And the error is also reflected in here. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. I think we might have to stop here. Did you have anything specific? Yeah. Okay, great. Perfect timing. We're almost there. So thank you so much. That's great. I think looking at the enterprise developer portal and how it becomes such a critical component of how we expose information, especially as organizations are building APIs, the thinking has now shifted towards being API first, building API products. How do we think about, what that entire journey looks like? So I think from an end-to-end perspective, we sort of went all the way from the definition to the GraphQL segments, to the developer portal, the Helm charts, all of that's now been covered, which is really good to see. So once again, if you've got questions and things, keep them coming. I'm just going to do a really short plug before we open it up to everybody who's here for a discussion, for questions, or sort of a hangout, if you will. So I'm going to quickly share the screen, hopefully one last time before we call it a close. Let me know what you see. Do you see the side project fund? I think you should see the side project fund. Awesome. All right. You see the side project fund. So what is the side project fund? Really quick plug over here. So if you're working on a side project in your spare time, which you would like to grow, we are here to help you out. We want to give your side project a kickstart, and therefore we have launched this new sort of micro grant program for anyone who has great ideas but may not have the resources to make them a reality or need additional resources to take that next step. So the grant is for about, I think, £500 with no strings attached. So as long as you are you're working on a side project, tell us all about it. We are here to help you out as well in that journey. Community forum would be a great place to be asking questions related to the side project. So that's essentially what it is. Now, just looking at the history behind it, obviously Tyk itself started as a side project. So, our founder and CEO, Martin, needed an enterprise-grade open source API gateway, but couldn't find one. So he built one himself, as you do. So, what started off as a really, really small side project, it became something big, and it is still growing today. In fact, the open source gateway that was built back then, obviously it has evolved over a period of time, but we have kept the open source gateway to be open source right from the beginning. It's essentially the gateway that powers all of our products, whether that is open source or enterprise grade. So that's quite the testament of things that come out as a part of his side project. So do not discount your ideas. Equally, why are we funding these projects? We believe in the power of connectivity and to connect every system in the world. So here we are helping you out to get up and running with what you love to do. Here are some of the sort of past winners or some of the past projects that have been really, really successful. I'll share the links to each one of them: Hopscotch IO, Code Crafters, Granddaddy, all of these really cool projects. And we hope that in the next community call, we will have an opportunity to showcase your project as well. And then finally, this is how you would get involved. This is how you can go ahead and apply. Tyk.io/fund. The deadline is coming up really quickly. It's on the 30th of April. We've already got some really, really cool projects that have been submitted, but we are definitely looking forward to more from you as well. So if you want to get it, if you have a side project and you want some little bit of a push, some little bit of support from our end to take that next step, feel free to sign up to that. With that, that ends my section. Really short, sweet, and simple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to everyone who's in the audience. Shortly, you'll get that panel upgrade option. Again, you can choose to accept it or not. That is completely up to you. Do not worry. If you're camera shy, that's perfectly fine. We are all friendly people here. If you don't want to, I'll give you permission to speak as well, so that in case you wanted to interact directly with us, you'll be able to do that as well. I see some really interesting people, some folks that we are quite familiar with in the audience as well. Hello, Greg, if you are here, that'll be really good to see you as well. Good to see you as well, Amy. That's really nice seeing you back here. I believe Bruno was here as well. I don't see him anymore, unfortunately, but some oldies, some veterans of the Tyk community, some supporters we've got there, but equally, we are looking forward to hearing from the rest of you as well. So great session, everyone. What did you make of that? I think the turnout overall seems to be quite nice. I hope people have been dazzled by some of the stuff that we spoke about, and hopefully we'll see more contributions coming through too, but equally sharing ideas. So now everyone has the permission to speak. If you do want to unmute yourself, you can do so. If you've got questions, feel free to ask that as well. I think there was one question that was asked and answered. I think, Gabe, you had asked a question about Helm Charts and when that's going to be available for the self-managed component. I think Carol has already answered that. We are looking at that at the end of Q2. So, fingers crossed, in the next community call, we'll be showcasing that, which is going to happen at the end of Q2. We don't have a final date yet, but we are looking at roughly, I think, end of July would be the next time we come back here. I see one more question that has come in. Can you please let us know what has been done in the latest version, ensure all the bugs reported? Okay. Updates, issues, anything in terms of resolutions, so that's really good. I think the complete list of release notes and change logs are all available. So I'm more than happy to send that over to you. I will do that at the end of this call. It is something that we are also looking at. It's always a mix when we look at these releases. There's always going to be a mix between new capabilities and enhancing and improving things that we have built before. So with that, I hope the release notes will help you with anything specific that you're looking at, or if there is anything more that you want to add there. Agatha, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I wanted to comment on this question, as I think Laurentiu as well. So yes, of course, release notes is one of the things, but the question from an anonymous attendee, actually, we don't see who's asked this, is have steps been taken to ensure the resolution time is shorter? And I want to say a very big yes. So we've worked on the way we deliver our product a lot in the past couple of quarters. There is a cadence currently that we follow with monthly patches. So that is currently already reducing the time to fix some of the issues. Obviously, the backlog has some bugs, so it might not happen that a particular bug will be picked up immediately after it's raised. However, we have monthly patches cadence. We also ensure that each release has some sort of balance between new features and reducing technical debt, obviously reducing the bugs. Our Q2 focus very much is making sure that that especially the bugs that have been raised through Tyk Community and through our Zendesk as well, that those are reduced as much as we can. It might not all happen in Q2, but there is a large focus on that. So I just wanted to be very clear on on what the time is, on what the timing is with those things. And if there's something particular, as I said, I don't know who asked the question, but if there's something in particular, feel free to reach out to us. Either bump up your issue in GitHub, or bump up your conversation in Tyk Community Forum, or just send a follow-up email to Zendesk. And yeah, there will always be someone who will contact the squad directly and advocate on your behalf.
I just want to say,
sorry, go on.
Yeah, I just want to say that, like I said, we're actively going through some sort of, I'm not sure if it should call it stabilization, but also bug fixing period. So stay tuned to our next patch releases. There are going to be lots of fixes in there. And also you might have seen that Andy has left the call actually, but he's taking care of the GitHub issues constantly, trying to answer the questions there, and lots of activity has happened lately there. So let us know if you have specific bugs or issues in mind, so we can check our existing list of issues that we're actively working on, because I personally have addressed lots of dashboard issues lately, so they'll be there soon. Yeah.
Absolutely, like we said, I think it's a bit of a balancing act, and I think we have this time around we have prioritized getting some of that technical debt away, and if there are things that are blocking you, and I think we never want that to happen. So and once again, if you've got any specific requests, do feel free to raise those through our community forum, or now that you know us a little bit better, so you can raise that directly over email as well if you wanted to do so. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit more of a confidence in doing so. Right. I think there's a question for you, maybe Sergey or Laurencio here from Greg. Hey, Greg. This is about, can we now release OAS APIs to the Tyk portal? And what would that journey look like?
That's a very interesting topic, as in, since we're now storing OAS open definition together for OAS API definitions, why not release that entire documentation to the portal as well? And that's down the road on our roadmap. It's just that, as Andy said, we're still in the early access model of OAS, so we still have to meet some parity with the classic API definition in terms of features. But we're actively collaborating with Portal on making that happen. So yeah, it's on the way.
Yep. Can't add anything else to the answer, but yes, at some point we will have this. But I mean, right now it's available by CI/CD, so yeah.
Yeah, there's a way to do that right now. It's just, I think the simpler way is probably on its way. I think that's probably the best way to put it. But yes, that's on its way. Thanks for the question. Any further questions? I think I'm not seeing too many questions left here in our chat. I think we've done a reasonably good job in getting some of those questions answered while the talk was going on, which is great. I think we've got about 10 minutes left. So maybe what we could do, we could probably end the session with perhaps just what we are looking forward to. So like I said, I think our next community call is going to be happening roughly end of Q2. I think we are looking at potentially an end July date at this point of time, potentially early August, end July. So we'll get the confirmation soon. But again, we are going to be looking at this structure. Once again, this was the first community call that we did. We are looking at the structure and balancing out some of the key highlights from the community contributions that we will bring in, next time around, we'll also have the conclusion of the side project funds. Hopefully we'll have some projects to showcase there as well. And of course, any updates and new things from Tyk 2 will be coming up, hopefully in the next call as well. So just going around the room here, just to see if there is anything exciting that you want to share, maybe as a sneak peek to people. Maybe Agatha, because I'm aware of one interesting thing that's coming from your end. So maybe a bit of a sneak peek on what's coming up from your squad.
Yeah, so one thing that I'm really excited about, and I've been talking, we have a new person that has joined our squad recently, and I had a session with them today. And I got really excited just talking about what's coming up. So I thought, you know what, maybe it makes sense to also share it with the community. And it relates to to one thing that I've briefly mentioned when I was presenting, and that's actually observability. So I told you about the pumps that we've built, a way to pump out analytics records from your gateway to a database of your choice. And that's for GraphQL. As of now, there is a way to pump out the analytics. You have to analyze them in external tools. But what I'm really excited about is that we will continue work on this. And that's not only about bringing the analytics that our pump can generate for you back to the dashboard to give you a little bit of insight of how your GraphQL APIs are performing, but it's also a big piece of OpenTelemetry. It's a large initiative within Tyk in general. It's not only about GraphQL, but we decided to sort of become a guinea pig, I think. So we've been working in the current release that's going to be coming out end of this quarter. We've been working already on making sure that you can have spans and you can have tracers also from your GraphQL APIs. We managed to go as far as being able to have spans coming from the resolvers. So yeah, we're able to monitor a lot currently with GraphQL APIs, which is one of the very fundamental things that you need to do in order to make sure that your APIs are not being abused and they are healthy. And they are useful to your users. So yeah, so OpenTelemetry, if you've been in the community forum of Tyk, there was a post, I think from September 2022, back from September, where Sonia, our colleague who's actually not here with us today, she's at KubeCon. So she's presenting tomorrow, and I think they have like 450 attendees in the session. Man. Yeah. Yeah,
and funnily enough, it is the same topic. It is topic about GraphQL and OpenTelemetry. So, you know, it's really exciting to see that too.
Yeah, exactly. So back in September 2022, Sonia sort of hinted at Tyk in general going into OpenTelemetry and making sure that we can support the features of OpenTelemetry natively in the gateway. So there's a post in there. There's been some discussion under that. I wanted to show how it works, but I wasn't able to get it working. It's in a very early demos. It's in a very early implementation stage, and and I just I couldn't get it to work on my local machine. Probably some dependencies, I don't know. But this is one big thing that we will be focusing on. We are already focusing on it a little bit in this quarter, and then the next quarters will bring a lot more analytics and insights into your GraphQL APIs, and I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely, as are we. But I think the other thing over here, given that we are going all in with OpenTelemetry, I think the key value of that, beyond just the observability that we bring to the table right now, it's also being able to integrate with other systems that speak the same language. Any other observability platform, whether that is monitoring, whether that is troubleshooting, whether that is analytics, if they are supporting OpenTelemetry, there is literally, you have direct access to that together with Tyk. So you don't have to, again, sit and build your middlewares and things like that anymore. Simplifies the entire process in a massive way. So that makes us really excited.
Exactly. We've been testing with Jaeger, we've been testing with New Relic, and it works very well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. There is one question that I'm going to pick up. We have literally 5 minutes left now. There's one question from an anonymous attendee again. how granular is the information can be, how can granular information be exposed through the dashboard available in the developer portal, example per endpoint? I'm assuming, are you clear about that question there, Sergey? It might be one for you.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so right now we have in the enterprise portal, we can expose APIs as a product. So for instance, you may bundle multiple APIs together, teach them, and expose as a product via single policy. We don't we don't expose endpoints per se on the portal. So yeah, maybe it's the question about the access control, but it's totally possible. So you can define access control as per endpoint, or ban some endpoints from being exposed. That's totally possible. I mean, I don't know if it answers the question, but I think it's more about access control. Right.
So I think if you've got any further clarification on that, the person who's asked the question, feel free to do so as well. I can potentially think about, I mean, obviously exposing, when you talk about granular information, access control could be one of them. Potentially the analytics around that. API could be the other part of it, perhaps. I think how the usage is happening for that. I think the way we are looking at APIs on the developer portal right now is really in the form of API products. Now, obviously, that could be just a single API, but essentially the value of it comes from bundling it together in a more usable way. It's because typically you're not using single endpoints. In most cases, you're usually looking to combine a couple of them to build out an application. I think that's what we are looking at here. So I think maybe a word or two on the analytics part of things there, Sergey, perhaps, if you wanted to know more about what's going on, how the usage is happening with the APIs, how would one do that for the developer portal?
Yeah, definitely. So right now we have analytics and as per application, as per developer, as per organization, and as per plans and products. That means you can enable almost any combinative Tyk information available in Tyk Pump. You can create almost any billing or monetization flow. So for instance, if you have very complicated billing system and you want to, let's say, monetize your APIs based on amount of monetary volume that happens in your APIs, and you want to calculate this, that's totally possible. So we can pump this data to your billing system, you can create invoice and billing reports there. On the other hand, this information is available to developers. So we expose the basic information out of the box. So your developers can analyze their traffic, they can analyze issues, they can analyze performance of their APIs, and quickly understand if something happens on your end, on their end, or somewhere in between. But also you can, if you have any other way, more complicated business systems, more analytics available to developers, it's totally possible to expose this on the live portal. So we don't limit you in how you customize theme of the dev portal. You can change the layout, include custom CSS, iframes, whatever. So
I think with here, I think there's a bit of a clarification there in terms of, I think based on the demo, there were graphs showing HTTP request status codes for APIs. The question is more about info about individual endpoint usage. I think that's kind of what we were getting at as well from a usage standpoint. How do we get more info about individual endpoints?
Yeah, I mean, we don't expose this in a portal, but this information available. So I mean, it just don't have a graph for it. But again, if you need to, and for admin purposes or for let's say for developers, you can build those graphs and expose them to developers, right? And so it's we don't limit you, and we have this information available. Just from UX interviews, you don't have any requests for it. So.
Awesome. All right. We are literally at time at this point. Laurencio, did you have anything to say? Sorry, I might have cut you off there. Or
no, maybe start analyzing it and or give guidance on how improve the docs on how they can extend the chart options and to display more data about endpoints on that. That would be a good thing to do.
One other question has come in. I think this might be for you, Laurencio. When importing an API definition into the gateway, are we now able to specify a Swagger URL instead of having to paste definition in manually?
Not yet, but lots of ideas around improving the import functionality. So there's also to support uploading files, different formats as YAML, or because now we support just JSON. The URLs also, stay tuned. We're working on that to make it better and better. Yeah, all of those have been discussed and on the roadmaps.
Absolutely, and I think that's the interesting bit there, because we've got some pretty interesting stuff coming in. I see a sad smiley face there, but don't worry, it is coming. It is on the horizon, and that's, I think, what we just to end things up. Obviously, there's the open telemetry focus across the board that we are looking at, but we're also looking at OAS parity with the Tyk definition that currently exists, and just adding more capabilities as we bring in. But if you have feedback while we are doing that process, then by all means get involved. Tell us what is essential for you, what might be blocking you, and I think we will be here to prioritize that and bring that together. Because right now, obviously, we have our own research that tells us to follow a specific path, and I think the more feedback that we get, we can course correct quicker, sooner rather than later. So that's another thing that is really, really exciting for us to coming.
Anyway, notes taken, and I'll bother Andy tomorrow. So.
Perfect. Finally, I think there are a couple other things coming up from Carol's team. I think we're also looking at the Helm charts for everything. I think we already mentioned that, especially for the self-managed stuff, which hopefully we'll demo next time. So stay tuned for that as well. And I think that's about it. I think we're also looking at further enhancements on the dev portal, but stay tuned for that around specifically around access control and access rights coming to.
Yeah. So
Carol,
apart
yes.
from Helm chart, I also want to mention, like, we are working on the Tyk operator support for the OAS API. So that's coming. I hopefully next call we will be able to demo it for you. So it will tie in quite nicely how you make use of the same OAS API document along or your CI/CD journey.
Absolutely. Just final thought here. I think there's one other thing that what we've done as our commitment to just get more feedback and hopefully for you to get involved in the community forum is that we've just updated a couple of the categories now. And I think what you will be able to see is there is a meta feedback category where we're inviting more discussions, we're inviting more feedback when you're using the forum or anything that is specific to Tyk. I think obviously there are other categories that you can look at. But if you whether that is for the community call, whether that is for the forum itself, if there are ways for you to give us feedback, this is the section that you would go to. So feel free to do that. And we've got a slightly nicer view of how the community forum looks like. So, and here you can already see the heroes answering questions, and a couple of other people that I haven't mentioned, Pete, Said, Ahmed, all of the folks who jump on questions and respond to them. So all right, I think that brings us to the end of it. We are just 3 minutes past 2 hours, which is phenomenal. We've covered a whole lot of things here, and I think that obviously gets us quite excited from a product perspective, but equally just revisiting why we do what we do, what really excites us from interacting with the community. And we'll hopefully see this as a recurring thing, which it will be from our side of things, but also from your end, to look forward to discussing cooler things, your ideas, as much as looking forward to what we have to contribute to the world of API and API management from our end. So with that, we bring the session to a close. Thank you everyone on this panel, Agatha, Andy, who's not here with us anymore for this call, Laurencio, Olu, Sandeep, Carol, Andre, Sergey, Yubong as well. Everybody, thank you so much for being, those in the audience, those in the panel. It's been fantastic. We're hoping to bring this back next time, and hopefully you'll join us there as well. The recording for this is going to be available. I think the live stream is going to be available on YouTube immediately after we finish this, but the edited version of this will be available later this week or latest by early next week. So thank you, everyone. It's been fantastic. So with that,
thanks everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.